There is a particular kind of Nigerian man that every woman has encountered at least once in her life, or has heard about from her mother, her auntie, her neighbor, or her colleague who always eats lunch alone and has that far away look in her eyes. This man is not a bad man exactly. He pays his bills, most of them. He shows up to family functions with a firm agbada and a firm handshake. He remembers birthdays, sometimes. He loves his wife in the way that some men love their cars, proudly, possessively, and mostly when other people are watching. His name in this story is Daniel Okafo. And Daniel Okafo was, by every external measure, a man who had arrived.
He was 41 years old, broad-shouldered, with the kind of face that photographed well and the kind of confidence that filled a room before he'd even finished walking into it. He had been with Pinnacle Consulting, Lagos, for 9 years. 9 years of long nights, strategy decks, client dinners, and the very specific suffering of a man who knows he is smarter than his boss but must smile anyway. Then, on a humid Tuesday in January, his boss retired and Daniel Okafo became head of operations. Corner office, gold name plate, a parking spot with his name stenciled on the ground in yellow paint. The yellow paint specifically did something to Daniel's brain that even his wedding day had not managed to do. He stood in that parking lot on his first Monday as head of operations, looked down on the letters DANIEL or KAFOR on the tarmac, and felt deep in his chest the stirring of a man who has decided he deserves more than he currently has. More respect, more recognition, more, though he would not have used this word because he was not the kind of man who examined his own feelings, attention. His wife, Vanessa Okafo, had been with him for 10 years, married for 6 of them. She was the kind of woman people described as real, not because she was plain, because she was not plain at all, but because there was nothing performed about her. She was warm in the way of someone who actually means it. She laughed with her whole body. She remembered everyone's name and their children's names and what they had mentioned in passing about their mother's health. She made the kind of jollof rice that had caused grown men to go quiet at the table. She was also, at this point in her marriage, quietly invisible to Daniel. Not because he hated her. That would almost have been easier to diagnose. No, Daniel had simply done what many comfortable men do. He had stopped seeing her. She had become part of the furniture of his life, familiar, assumed, taken for granted in the particular way we take for granted anything we believe will always be there. When she spoke at dinner, he heard the sounds, but not the words. When she dressed up for a night out, he said, "You look nice," the way someone says fine when asked how they are, reflexively, without looking up. When she laughed, he did not turn to find out what was funny. Clara arrived at Pinnacle Consulting on a Wednesday in February, which is notable only because Wednesdays are the kind of unremarkable day on which remarkable things tend to happen when you look back later and try to trace where everything went to go wrong. She was 33. She was sharp in the way of someone who has had to be. She had grown up in Enugu, the third of 5 children, with a mother who worked double shifts at a hospital and a father who had very strong opinions and a very small income, which is a combination that teaches a child early that the world does not give you what you deserve, you have to engineer it. Clara had been engineering things ever since. She had a first-class degree in business administration, a master's she'd funded herself, and a CV that would make a recruiter sit up straight. She was also, and this is important, completely unbothered by the fact that she was talented. She did not apologize for it. She did not shrink it. She simply walked into Pinnacle Consulting on that Wednesday in February, sat down at her new desk in the business development unit, and looked around the office the way a chess player looks at the board before the first move. She was not looking for love. She was not looking for a situationship or drama or to be someone's work wife. That particular title would come later, and it would come from Daniel's mouth, not hers.
What Clara was looking for was a promotion. Specifically, she wanted the newly vacant Senior Manager of Business Strategy position that had been quietly circulating in the office rumor mill for 3 weeks. It came with a 30% salary increase, a travel allowance, and an office with a window, which sounds small until you have spent 3 years in a windowless room with someone else's recycled air and someone else's ambition. The position would be decided, she had learned in her first week, largely on the recommendation of the head of operations. The head of operations was Daniel Okafo.
Daniel Okafo, Clara observed within her first 2 weeks, was a man who had recently been given significant power and was still adjusting to the size of it. The way a person walks carefully when they've just put on new shoes they are not sure fit. He sat at the head of meetings with authority, but glanced around to see who was nodding. He made decisions confidently and then hovered near his own decisions, waiting to see if anyone would clap. More importantly, Clara noticed this. Daniel Okafor's eyes lit up when he was praised and went flat when he was not. She filed this information away with the precision of someone who takes notes on everything.
It started, as these things often do, with something small: coffee. On a Tuesday morning in her 3rd week, Clara walked past Daniel's open office door, paused, and knocked lightly on the frame. "Good morning, sir. I was just heading to the break room. Can I get you anything?" Daniel looked up from his laptop. He had a mug on his desk, but it was empty, and he had not gotten up to refill it because he had been in the middle of a report that kept resisting him. He was slightly irritated and had been so since 7 a.m.
"Coffee," he said. "Black. No sugar." "I know," Clara said, and smiled and left. She was back in 4 minutes with a perfect cup of black coffee, no sugar. She set it on his desk with both hands, the way you are taught to hand things to elders, and said, "The Nescafe was finished, so I used the ground coffee from the top shelf. I think it's better anyway." It was in fact significantly better. Daniel took a sip, looked at the mug, and then looked at Clara with the expression of a man who has just been pleasantly surprised. "How did you know how I take it?" he asked. "I pay attention," Clara said simply. "I notice things about people I respect."
She said it and walked out before he could respond, which was intentional. You never wait for the compliment to land. You drop it and leave. Let the man turn it over in his head at his own pace. Daniel turned it over in his head for the rest of the morning. Because here is the truth he would not have admitted to anyone, including himself. His wife, Vanessa, 6 years into their marriage, still occasionally asked, "Do you take sugar?" when she was making him tea in the morning. Not every time, but enough times that he had noticed. Clara had known after 3 weeks.
This is the kind of small thing that a man with a sturdy sense of self would have smiled at and moved on from. Daniel Okafo did not have a steady sense of self beneath the gold nameplate. He had a man-shaped hole where consistent affirmation was supposed to go. And Clara had just dropped something warm and attentive directly into it. He was not falling for Clara. Not yet. Not even close, he would have told you. He was simply noticing her. By week 4, Clara had established a pattern so natural feeling that Daniel never once stopped to ask himself how it had developed. She stopped by his office every morning, always with a reason. A report she needed his input on, a question about a client meeting, a document that needed his signature. There was always a legitimate work reason, which was important because Clara was not stupid. She did not operate in the shadows. Everything she did could be explained professionally, cleanly, without a single thing out of place. But alongside the professional reason, there was always something else, a comment, an observation, a moment of laughter. She would mention something he had said in last week's all-hands meeting and tell him how insightful it was, and then, crucially, tell him why. Not just, "That was a great point, sir," which is the hollow flattery of someone who wants something, but what you said about restructuring client portfolios before Q3, I've been thinking about it all week, and I actually think you were ahead of the industry on that. The trade journals are only just catching up. He was not cruel about it. He was worse than cruel. He was absent. And Vanessa, who had the patience of a woman who had been raised to manage her home, and the quiet fury of a woman who had grown past that particular lesson, said very little. She said very little, and she went to class. But we will come back to that. This kind of flattery is dangerous precisely because it is specific. It requires the target to feel understood, not merely complimented. And Daniel, who had sat through years of generic praise and years of domestic invisibility, found it intoxicating in a way he did not have language for. He started looking forward to his mornings. He started making sure his office was tidy before 8 a.m. He started, God help him, leaving the top 2 buttons of his shirt undone, because Clara had once mentioned, in passing, that overly formal dressing could make senior staff seem unapproachable to junior teams. His colleague Femi, who shared a wall with Daniel's office, and therefore heard more than he wanted to, watched all of this with a deeply unsettled feeling of a man walking slowly toward a cliff while waving cheerfully. Femi Adeyemi was 52, had been married twice, and had arrived at a philosophy about life he shared with almost no one because, in his experience, nobody listened until it was too late. He was the kind of friend every man needs, and most men do not deserve. Honest to the point of social discomfort, loyal beyond reason, and constitutionally incapable of pretending he did not see what he clearly saw. He found Daniel in the cafeteria on a Friday afternoon in March, and he sat down across from him with his tray and his expression. Daniel knew the expression. "What?" "Nothing," Femi said, stabbing a piece of fried plantain. "I'm just eating my food." "Femi," I said nothing. He ate the plantain. "She was in your office again this morning. Clara, she had documents. She always has documents. It's remarkable how many documents require your specific attention." "She's thorough. That's a good quality in an employee. Is that what we're calling it?" It was not a question. Daniel set down his fork. "She's my work wife, Femi. It's a professional thing. She gets the stress of this job. We have a good working dynamic, that's all." Femi was quiet for a moment. Then he said, very carefully, the way a doctor delivers a result, Daniel, my brother, I want you to hear what you just said. You called a woman who is not your wife, your wife. You described it as a professional thing. Those two statements are having an argument inside your own sentence, and you haven't noticed. You are being dramatic. I am 52 years old. I have paid 2 bride prices, attended 2 weddings, and signed 2 sets of papers in a lawyer's office that I never want to see again. I am not dramatic. I am experienced.
Daniel laughed despite himself. Femi, does Vanessa know you have a work wife? A pause. It's not something you announce. It's not what you are thinking. She's just a colleague. Femi, Daniel. He looked at him with the kind of tired patience that only comes from having been wrong about exactly this thing before. The last time I told myself a woman was just a colleague, I was signing the papers 18 months later. He picked up his fork. Eat your food, I'm just saying. Daniel ate his food. He told himself Femi was projecting. He told himself this the whole walk back to his office, where, coincidentally, Clara had left a small post-it note on his keyboard that said, "Reviewed the Lagos Central client file. Found an error that could have cost us 4 million naira. Fixed it. Didn't want to bother you with the small things. See." He read it twice. He sat down, leaned back in his chair, and thought, "This woman is remarkable." At home, that same Friday evening, Vanessa Okafo was remarkable in a completely different way, and Daniel missed it entirely. She had come home at 8:30, later than usual, with a bag full of fabric samples, a sketchbook tucked under her arm, and paint on her left wrist that she hadn't noticed yet. She was tired in the way you are tired after doing something that matters, which is a different tiredness entirely from the tiredness of doing something you hate. She'd been attending the Lekki Skills and Trade Center every Tuesday and Thursday evening for 4 months now. She hadn't told Daniel. Not because she was hiding it. She had mentioned it once in October over dinner. He had said, without looking up from his phone. So she had stopped mentioning it and started going and started getting very, very good. Her instructor was a small, sharp woman called Auntie BC, who had been in the fashion and tailoring business for 27 years and had zero tolerance for imprecision, self-doubt, or what she called crooked seams and crooked thinking. She terrified most of the women in the class. Vanessa had decided from the first session that she adored her. It was Auntie BC who had first looked at Vanessa's work and said, not kindly, because kindness was not Auntie BC's currency, but truthfully, which was better. "This is good. You have the eye. Not everybody has the eye. Don't waste it." By March, she had completed 2 commissioned pieces, a friend's graduation dress and an auntie's church outfit, and been paid for both. Real money. Money she had not mentioned to Daniel. Not out of secrecy, but because every time she tried to bring it up, the conversation went somewhere else, or he was on his phone, or the moment passed and she let it. She was letting a lot of moments pass lately. On that Friday evening, she walked into the living room and found Daniel exactly where she'd found him most evenings for the last 2 months, on the sofa, phone in hand, smiling at the screen. "You are home late," he said, not looking up. "So are you, for once," she said, and her voice was light enough that it didn't sound like what it was. "Clara sent me this video." He laughed at his phone. "This woman, honestly, she's too funny. She found this old clip of our MD at a conference in 2019, trying to pronounce synergistic, and..." He held the phone toward her without looking up.
Vanessa looked at the phone. She looked at Daniel's face, open and laughing, lit up in a way she had not seen in months. She looked back at the phone. "Who is Clara?" she asked. "My colleague. I've mentioned her. My work wife." Still not looking up. She just gets it, you know? The office politics, the pressure, everything. It's rare to find someone who actually... "Your work wife," Vanessa repeated. Something in her voice made him glance up, briefly. "It's just a thing people say, babe. It means..." "I know what it means." She put her bag down on the dining table. She set her sketchbook on top of it. She went to the kitchen and she boiled water and she made herself a cup of tea. And she stood at the kitchen window and drank it in silence, while Daniel laughed at something else on his phone in the living room. And in her head, very quietly, a thought settled. The kind of thought that does not arrive loudly, does not announce itself, does not argue. It simply arrives, the way dawn arrives, gradually and then all at once. "Okay," the thought said. "So this is where we are.
Let him enjoy." She opened her sketchbook to a fresh page. At the top, in her clean, careful handwriting, she wrote 2 words. She had been trying to come up with a name for her business for 3 weeks, ever since Auntie BC had told her to find one. Looking at the kitchen window, at the reflection of the woman standing in it, tired and paint-stained, and quietly, privately, furiously alive, she finally had it. She wrote V by Vanessa. She drew a small circle around it. Then she went to bed, leaving Daniel to his phone and his work wife, and whatever it was he thought he was building in that office, while she built something of her own, quietly, in the dark. There is a saying that Nigerians deploy at moments like this. Moments where a person is so consumed by what glitters in front of them that they stop noticing what is quietly, steadily, irreversibly slipping behind them. The man who chases 2 rabbits, the saying goes, catches none. Daniel Okafo, head of operations at Pinnacle Consulting Lagos, was not chasing 2 rabbits. He would have been offended by this suggestion. A professional, he would have told you. A family man, a man of focus and discipline. What he was, in actual fact, was a man who had stopped coming home before 9 o'clock, who had not asked his wife a genuine question in 6 weeks, who had missed 3 dinners, 1 anniversary dinner, and a Sunday lunch at his mother-in-law's house, where the pepper soup had reportedly been exceptional. He had, however, remembered to compliment Clara's presentation slides on 4 separate occasions. April arrived in Lagos the way it always does, with heat that has no manners and humidity that follows you indoors. The office at Pinnacle Consulting was aggressively air-conditioned in response, which meant that stepping out of the building into the afternoon sun felt like walking into a wall. Clara had come to love that moment, the blast of heat, the adjustment. It felt, she thought, like the world reminding you that comfort is temporary and you should always be prepared for the temperature to change. She was thinking about temperature a lot lately. Specifically, she was thinking about how long to keep things warm before they needed to go cold. The Senior Manager of Business Strategy position had been officially posted internally in the first week of April. Clara had applied immediately, submitted a proposal document that had taken her 3 weeks to prepare, and then done something that her 2 best friends, when she told them, over wine and chin-chin at her Lekki apartment, called either genius or diabolical, depending on which friend you asked. She had asked Daniel to be her reference. Of course, Daniel had said, without a moment's hesitation, and with the smile of a man who believes he is being generous when he is actually being managed. I'll put in a strong word. Nobody knows your work better than I do. I wouldn't trust anyone else, Clara said. And she meant it, just not in the way he thought. Her friend Adora, the one who had called it diabolical, had leaned across the table that evening and said, Clara, what happens when he finds out you played him? He's not going to find out, Clara said,
refilling her glass. What if he does? Then I'll have already been promoted and it won't matter. Adora stared at her. You are a different kind of person. I prefer strategic, Clara said, and ate a chin-chin.
But April also brought something else, something Clara had not planned for, which irritated her because she preferred to plan for everything. She had not planned to find Daniel's behavior genuinely pathetic in a way that made her uncomfortable. It was a Thursday evening. Everyone had gone home. Clara was at her desk finishing a client brief, headphones in, when she heard it. Daniel, in his office, on a phone call, voice slightly too loud, because he always spoke too loudly when he thought nobody was listening. I said I'd be home by 8, Vanessa. I just have... A pause. I said I'm not shouting. Another pause. Longer. That class again? You're still doing that class? He laughed. Not a kind laugh. The kind of laugh that people use instead of listening. Babe, I keep telling you, you don't need to be running around Lekki at night for some... Pause. I'm not dismissing it. I'm just saying...
Clara took out one headphone. Fine, Vanessa. I'll be home by 9. He hung up. Clara put her headphone back in. She did not feel guilty, exactly. She had not made Daniel neglect his wife. She had simply made herself available to fill a space he had already emptied. That was not her fault. That was architecture. But she also, somewhere quiet, noted, the wife has a class. The wife was doing something. The wife was not simply sitting at home waiting, which meant the wife was not the passive, unknowing figure Daniel seemed to think she was. Clara filed this away too. She filed everything.
The humiliation happened on a Saturday, which was cruel, because Saturdays are supposed to be peaceful. Vanessa had arranged to meet her friend Chisom for lunch at a restaurant in Victoria Island, a bright, airy place with good pasta and better gossip, the kind of establishment where Lagos women go to eat and be seen eating. She had dressed nicely. She was in a good mood. She had just received a message from a client, a referral from the graduation dress, asking for a custom piece for a traditional wedding in July, and the budget they had mentioned was the largest she had been quoted yet. She was sitting with Chisom, showing her the message on her phone, when Daniel walked in. He was not alone.
He was with 3 colleagues from work, which would have been fine, except that one of the 3 colleagues was Clara, who walked beside him in a cream-colored blazer, with the particular ease of someone who is very comfortable in a space she technically has no claim to. Chisom saw them first. She kicked Vanessa under the table. Vanessa looked up. For a moment, nobody moved. The restaurant continued its Saturday noise around them, cutlery, laughter, a baby somewhere protesting something, while Vanessa and Daniel looked at each other across the room, with the particular stillness of a marriage examining itself. Daniel recovered first. He walked over, hands in pockets, with the expression of a man who has decided the best defense is an offense.
Vanessa, I didn't know you were coming here. It's a restaurant, Daniel. People come here. I'm just here with colleagues. Team lunch thing. Informal. He gestured vaguely. Clara and the 2 other colleagues had drifted toward a table, except Clara, who had stayed at a polite distance that was somehow still too close. Hi, Clara said, with a smile that was perfectly pleasant and completely impenetrable. You must be Vanessa. Daniel talks about you. Vanessa looked at her for exactly 2 seconds. Does he? All good things, Clara said, and the smile did not move. Chisom, under the table, pressed her foot against Vanessa's shoe, in the silent language of best friends that meant, I am here. I see everything. We will discuss this extensively later. It might have ended there, awkward, uncomfortable, but manageable. Except that Daniel, for reasons that can only be attributed to the specific madness that overtakes a man who has been feeling important for too long, decided to keep talking. What are you ladies celebrating? He asked, nodding at Vanessa's phone, still on the table with the client message visible. Work, Vanessa said simply. Work? He said it with a smile, the wrong kind of smile. The sewing thing, fashion design, yes.
Well, before it gets even steamier, do tell us where you are watching from. I love to see how far these stories travel. And don't forget to share this story with a friend, since good stories deserve to be shared. Enjoy.
Ah! He said the way people say it when they mean, oh, that small thing. He glanced at Clara briefly, a glance that Vanessa caught, and that Chisom caught, and that, frankly, the couple at the next table probably caught. Vanessa has been doing a sewing class, he said to no one in particular, and chuckled. She went from wanting to be, what was it, a buyer? And now it's sewing. Another chuckle. My wife always finding a new... Daniel. Vanessa's voice was quiet, that particular quietness. I'm just saying, babe, it's a hobby. It's a business. Right. The smile again. The dismissive, affectionate, condescending smile of a man who has decided his wife is cute when she's serious. He looked at Clara again, and this time the look was unmistakable. It was the look of a man performing for an audience of one. She's been going to this skill center in Lekki, taking classes, which is fine, I support it, but... He lowered his voice, in a way that did not lower it at all. Between us, she didn't even finish her degree, so I don't know what kind of business.
Daniel, I'm not saying it's not sweet, I'm just... Daniel. Chisom's voice this time, flat and clear as a bell. I think you should go to your table. The silence that followed was the loudest thing in the restaurant. Daniel blinked. Something shifted on his face, a flicker of awareness, perhaps, that he had crossed a line so visibly that even the air in the room had changed texture. He looked at Vanessa. Vanessa was looking at her plate. She was not crying. She was not shouting. She had gone somewhere behind her own eyes, somewhere still and very far away. And she was looking at her plate. And her jaw was set. And her hand on the table was perfectly still. That stillness was worse than anything she could have said. I'll see you at home, Daniel said. He went to his table. Chisom waited until he was seated, and then she leaned across and covered Vanessa's hand with both of hers and said nothing, because there was nothing to say yet, and Chisom understood timing. After a long moment, Vanessa looked up. She picked up her fork. She took a bite of her pasta. The food is good here, she said. It is, Chisom agreed. They ate. They did not look at Daniel's table. They did not need to. Vanessa hung up and opened her laptop. She had already done the research: business registration, the cost of a small retail space, the supplier contacts Auntie Bisi had given her, the Instagram page she had been quietly building for 2 months under the name V by Vanessa, posting her work to an audience that had grown, without any advertising, to nearly 4,000 followers. She had not told Daniel about the Instagram page either. She stayed up until 1 in the morning going through numbers, and when Daniel came home at 11:30, smelling of restaurant wine, she was at the dining table with her laptop and her sketchbook and did not look up. You're still awake?
Mm-hmm. He stood in the doorway for a moment. Something about this scene, the open laptop, the focused posture, the particular quality of her not looking at him, made him feel, briefly, the way you feel when you walk into a room and sense you have interrupted something important. What are you doing? Work, Vanessa said. He went to bed. She kept working.
May arrived, and with it, the unraveling. It began as most unravelings do, not with a dramatic event, but with a small accumulation of small things that had been gathering pressure for months and were now, quietly, looking for a way out. At the office, Daniel had begun to notice a shift in Clara that he could not name precisely. She was still warm, still professional, still present, but there was something slightly different in the temperature of it. She was a degree or two cooler. She responded to his messages a little more slowly. She had cancelled their last 2 after-work walking dinners, which was what Daniel called them, though Femi had once raised a single eyebrow at the phrase that communicated an entire paragraph of skepticism.
"You cancelled again," Daniel said to her one Tuesday morning, trying to keep his voice neutral and professional. "I know, I'm sorry, the proposal deadline moved up and I had to." "It's fine," he said, in the tone that means it is not fine. Clara looked at him with an expression of gentle professional concern. "Sir, are you okay?" "I'm fine, Clara. You seem stressed. You should take care of yourself." She said it the way a nurse says it to a patient she is about to discharge, kindly, firmly, finally. Daniel went back to his office and sat behind his desk and told himself he was imagining things. He was not imagining things. At home, the atmosphere had taken on the quality of a house where something has been decided but not yet announced. Vanessa moved through their shared space with the focused energy of someone who has redirected all her attention towards something that matters and who no longer has the bandwidth for performance. She cooked, but she cooked quickly and without the extra care she used to put into it. She slept on her side of the bed and did not migrate toward the middle in the night the way she used to. She answered Daniel's questions, the few he asked, with complete, correct, unhelpful brevity. "Did you eat?" he asked one evening. "Yes." "How was your day?" "Fine." "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Daniel." He did not ask about the restaurant. He had been waiting for her to bring it up, to shout, to cry, to create a scene that he could then respond to and resolve and move past. She did not bring it up. She simply did not bring it up, which was somehow far more unsettling than any scene would have been. Meanwhile, V by Vanessa had found a shop space. It was small, one room in a commercial building in Surulere, with a window that let in good afternoon light, and a landlord named Mr. Adegoke, who had the mustache of a man who takes himself very seriously, but offered her a reasonable rate when she negotiated. Auntie BC had come with her to see it, walked around it twice, pressed on the walls as though checking for secrets, and then said, "Take it." Vanessa signed the papers on a Friday afternoon. She took a photo of the empty room, bare walls, bare floor, the afternoon light coming through the window, and posted it on Instagram with a single caption, "Coming soon." By Sunday, the post had 411 likes. She did not tell Daniel.
The argument that ended everything arrived on a Thursday night in late May, and it arrived the way thunder arrives after lightning you have already seen. You knew it was coming, and still the sound shakes you. Daniel had come home to find Vanessa on a video call at the dining table, fabric swatches spread around her, speaking with the quick, assured energy of someone in the middle of a business decision. She held up 2 pieces of fabric to the camera, tilted them in the light, said, "The Duchess satin for the bodies and the organza overlay. Yes, exactly. And I can have the first fitting by the 20th. Daniel stood in the doorway. He had had a difficult day. The kind of difficult day that men with fragile egos have when the world has not arranged itself around their comfort. A client meeting that went poorly, a report that came back with corrections, and most pressingly, a message from Clara that had been professional and warm and somehow felt like a door being politely but permanently closed.
He was not in the mood for whatever this was. Vanessa finished the call, made a note in her book, and looked up. "There's food on the stove," she said. "What is all this?" Daniel gestured at the fabric, the laptop, the organized chaos of a woman running a business from her dining table. "Work,"
Vanessa, this is the dining table. I know where the dining table is. We eat here. We haven't eaten together in 3 weeks, Daniel, so I'm not sure what your concern is about the dining table. He stared at her. She held his gaze and did not blink.
I am trying to build something, she said calmly. I have clients. I have a shop. A shop. He said it the way he had said work in the restaurant. That tone. Vanessa, you opened a sewing shop. A fashion design atelier, yes. With what money? The question landed like a slap. She absorbed it. With my money, she said, that I earned from clients who paid me. Daniel pulled out a chair and sat down across from her, and his face had arranged itself into the particular expression of a man who believes he is being patient when he is actually being condescending. Babe, I am trying to talk to you seriously. You don't have a business degree. You didn't even finish your...
Don't. Your university education, and you want to run a business. Who is advising you? What is your business plan? Do you even know what a balance sheet is? Daniel, I'm asking seriously because someone has to. You are running around Lekki at night, spending money on a shop, fabric, whatever this is. He waved at the table. And you expect me to just say nothing? I am your husband. Then act like it. The words were quiet, pointed. They landed precisely. Daniel stood up. And then he said the thing he could not take back. The thing that Chisom would repeat to her husband, that Auntie Bisi would hear and go very still at, that would sit in Vanessa's chest not as pain, but as fuel, for longer than he would ever understand.
You know what your problem is? You are an illiterate woman playing at being a businesswoman. Go and learn sense first. The room was silent. Vanessa looked at him for a long moment. Then she began, very slowly, very deliberately, to fold her fabric samples. One by one, she stacked them neatly. She closed her laptop. She picked up her sketchbook. She stood up from the table. I want you to think, she said, very carefully, about what you just said to me. And then I want you to think about who exactly has been building something in this house and who has been across town being managed by a woman who doesn't care about him. She walked to the bedroom. She closed the door. She did not slam it. She closed it the way you close a chapter.
Daniel stood in the dining room for a long time. He told himself she was being dramatic. He told himself she was stressed, and he was stressed, and this was just what happened in marriages sometimes, and it would pass. He went to the kitchen and reheated his food and ate it standing at the counter, alone, which is one of the loneliest ways a person can eat, and he did not allow himself to feel how lonely it was. His phone lit up on the counter, a message from Clara. Hope you're well, sir. Just sent the Q2 strategy document to your email. Let me know your thoughts when you get a chance. No rush. He stared at it. June arrived, and with June came the end of things. The HR department at Pinnacle Consulting was managed by a woman named Mrs. Obiora, who had been in human resources for 19 years and had, in that time, developed the near supernatural ability to identify a workplace situation before it became a workplace incident. She had been watching the dynamic between Daniel Okafo and the new business development staff with the quiet, patient attention of someone who knows that these things always eventually surface. She had not needed to do anything, because on a Monday morning in the second week of June, Clara Eze walked into Mrs. Obiora's office, sat down, folded her hands on the desk, and made a formal report. I want to be clear, Clara said, that I am not making this report lightly. I have the highest respect for this company, and I believe in its values. I simply cannot continue to work in an environment where this kind of dynamic is allowed to persist. Mrs. Obiora looked at the file. She looked at Clara. How long has this been going on? Since February, Clara said, and if there was anything else in her expression, beneath the composed concerned professionalism,
any flicker of the chess player studying the board. It was buried so deep that even Mrs. Obiora, who had seen everything, could not find it.
On a Friday morning in late June, Daniel Okafo was called into the MD's office. He came out without the gold nameplate. He came out without the corner office. He came out without the parking spot with his name stenciled in yellow paint. He walked through the office floor to collect his things, the personal items, the framed photo from his desk, the small cactus Vanessa had put there 18 months ago as a joke, because she said it required exactly as much attention as he gave to things he claimed to care about. And nobody quite met his eyes, which is its own particular cruelty.
Daniel lasted 3 weeks in the apartment he'd moved into after Vanessa. Quietly, with Chisom's help and Auntie Bisi's blessing, changed the locks. She had not screamed. She had not made a scene. She had simply, one Saturday morning while Daniel was running an errand, packed a bag of his things with the organized calm of a woman who has made her decision and is now implementing it, left it by the door, and called a locksmith. When Daniel came back and found the door locked and the bag on the step, he stood there for a full minute. He called her phone. She did not pick up. He called again. She declined it. He sat on the step with his bag for 20 minutes in the Lagos afternoon heat until the security man at the gatehouse, a gentle giant named Musa, who had always liked Vanessa and had strong opinions about men who deserved bags left on steps, came over and said very kindly, "Oga, she say make I call you taxi."
V by Vanessa opened on the 14th of July. It was a Saturday. The Surulere shop had been painted a warm cream color with the logo, which Vanessa had designed herself with help from a young graphic designer she'd found through Instagram, on the window in gold lettering. Auntie Bisi had supplied the ribbon for the door. Chisom had organized a small gathering of women who came with food and noise and the particular energy of people who have been watching someone build something and are delighted to see it standing.
She was still in the shop at 6 in the evening when her phone rang. It was a journalist from a Lagos lifestyle publication, the Vanguard style section, who had seen the blog feature and wanted to do a short interview piece. New Lagos designers to watch. Would she be available next week? Vanessa sat down in the chair behind her small front desk, looked at the shop around her, the fabric samples on the wall, the dress form in the corner, the gold logo on the window catching the last of the afternoon sun, and said, "Yes, I'm available."
That same Friday evening, in a small apartment in Yaba that smelled of takeaway and bad decisions, Daniel Okafo was on his 3rd beer. He had seen the article. It had come through on his phone. A mutual contact had shared it, the way Lagos shares everything, comprehensively and without mercy. He had read it twice. He had looked at the photograph for a long time. Vanessa in the white suit, hand on the doorframe, the gold letters of V by Vanessa visible over her shoulder. He had thought about the dining table, the fabric samples, the video call he had walked in on, the way she had folded her samples one by one after he had said the thing he could not take back, the sketchbook, the locked door, the bag on the step, the 3 messages she had not replied to.